Bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu has today told the world that he had finally decided to work towards releasing all Israeli captives held by Palestinian fighters and therefore was sending his delegation for talks. And don't be surprised that Israelis, as well as their Western supporters, would still believe this war criminal, despite the fact that this thug simply doesn't care about the safety of hostages. Because if he did, he wouldn't be bombing the whole of Gaza with the help of the genocidal West. According to the BBC, the war criminal wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes has instructed negotiations to begin for the release of all remaining hostages and an end to the war in Gaza on terms acceptable to Israel. Seriously? This terrorist says he's interested in releasing all the hostages, and the BBC and other Western media propaganda outlets carry this nonsense without any caveat. The terrorist, who should have been facing the most severe punishment for crimes against humanity, says he wants to release all remaining hostages while announcing his plans to fully occupy Gaza by displacing over 1 million people from Gaza city to the south of the territory. He has already called for over 60,000 terrorists from his settler colony to further destroy Gaza and massacre more innocent Palestinians. Let's not forget the important fact here, which nobody is stating. Hamas accepted the ceasefire proposal tabled by Qatar and Egypt last week. The proposal was same as the one proposed by Donald Trump's billionaire property tycoon Steve Witkoff in June. And yet, terrorist Netanyahu has refused to accept that proposal. And now we are told that he is sending his delegation for talks. What are they going to talk about? And how do you release your hostages safely while continuing to starve the population and drop lethal bombs indiscriminately? How are mass starvation and indiscriminate bombing not going to kill hostages? Or Israeli terrorists and their Western backers have invented a technology whereby forced starvation would kill those who are holding these hostages, but not hostages themselves. And bombs would kill everyone else but spare the captives. Why is this so difficult for the world, particularly the Western media, to not see this ironic contradiction in the position taken by this terrorist called Benjamin Netanyahu? When would they realize that this terrorist of Polish descent doesn't care whether hostages live or die? He just wants to use these hostages as a tool for his political survival. I have made countless videos in the last 22 to 23 months exposing the willful deceit of the Western media. That's because these media outlets, or shall I say, the propaganda outlets such as the BBCs, CNNs, New York Times, and Guardians of the world could have stopped this barbarity by simply discharging their journalistic duty. They just had to stop repeating Israeli lies. There was no reason for these media outlets to present Israeli lies as facts. And the genocidal maniacs from the settler colony and the Western world would have had no option but to end their savagery against Palestinians. Because as I said earlier, nothing worries them more than a negative public perception globally. But it pains me to see even seasoned journalists such as Christian Fraser of the BBC is now failing in his journalistic duties. This was Christian Fraser, one of the better BBC journalists today.
And we put so much food into Gaza, more than before the war. But it's robbed by Hamas, and Hamas steal this supply from their own people and then sell it by them for prices that 80% of the population cannot afford.
Mr. Kleiner, with respect, most of your international critics would refute the point that you've put enough international aid into Gaza City. We're going to speak to someone on the programme at the moment, later this morning, who says that they're starving, they can't get food.
They cannot get food because Hamas is robbing it, because Hamas is disturbing the distribution of food, because they want them to be starved, to use it as a political tool, the same way as they put their own children as human shields.
Christians simply failed to expose the lies of this Israeli terrorist. Israel and the US have been carrying out forced starvation of the entire Gaza population since March this year, for 5 months to be precise. From May, they took complete control of the so-called aid distribution by removing every single UN agency out of the equation. So how was Hamas looting the aid materials during the period of the forced starvation? Not that there has been any evidence of Hamas looting aid materials even before Israeli terrorists began the forced starvation of Palestinians. But Christian didn't present these facts. At least this Channel 4 journalist was forceful in his challenge to his disgusting Israeli guest.
I mean, the evidence on the ground is that there is famine and starvation in Gaza. That does not look like an area that has been flooded with Israeli aid.
All these pictures, all of them turned out to be fake.
General,
so
that
we
is
know there
General,
is a whole campaign
that
revolving around something that doesn't exist.
General,
hunger in Gaza.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist at all.
The UN, several extremely reputable humanitarian organizations,
which are all full of terrorists.
This is baby or day, General. This is a baby. Please would you look at this baby. This was a baby featured on our program on Channel 4 News. This is not fake. This is baby Mohammed, General. What do you see?
I see a child in care house.
You see a child who is starving, suffering malnutrition?
Frankly,
this is what's happening in Gaza.
I don't like this kind of psychological games, okay? Let's put things as they are. Israel is fighting for its existence.
Such failures have helped Israeli terrorists carry out the Holocaust in Gaza with impunity. Listen to this Holocaust survivor. He's a Holocaust survivor, for God's sake, holding up the mirror. The situation in Gaza is now beyond anyone's imagination, as rightly presented by this medical student from Gaza.
All life aspects have been severely affected. All life basics like food, clean water, even medications, or even the feeling of security and peace, all of these things are hard to get. And many people, since waking up in Gaza, every day they fight for taking their life basics. So the situation in Gaza is so hard, is beyond what a human can endure.
Even Israelis are now stating it openly that terrorist Netanyahu and members of his medieval gang of depraved maniacs are deliberately murdering Palestinian civilians as part of their Dahiya doctrine.
The idea of doctrine that are fighting in Gaza, it's called the Dahiya doctrine, named after the Shia neighborhood of Beirut we attacked from there in 2006, the Second Lebanese War. And that doctrine believes that we have to inflict unproportional damage to the civilian infrastructure to make the South Lebanese not cooperate with Hezbollah, and to make the Gazans not cooperate with Hamas, right? So the IDF believes that we have to destroy the civilian infrastructure, schools, bridges, tunnel, water facilities, electricity facilities. And why? Because we cannot win Hamas, we cannot defeat them, right? So the IDF, in fact, are telling us as soldiers that civilian infrastructure is a part of the warfare, is a part of war, and it's basically okay, because when we move between houses, the rules of engagement that we are getting is every man military age shoot to kill, right? And when we see targets far from us in the remote window, we will order one of the tanks next to us to fire a tank shell, right? So because we see the entire area, the urban area, as war, right? And then the IDF says Hamas is hiding behind civilians. We don't distinguish between civilian areas and military operated area by Hamas when we're fighting inside. And well, let's think about that. I'm a resident of Tel Aviv. I live here all of my 39 years. And in the heart of Tel Aviv, we have the headquarters of the IDF. So the IDF is hiding behind civilians, right? I don't know if that's the equation. So what does it mean about firing rockets on Tel Aviv, right? We as an army, the IDF, needs to distinguish between civilian targets, civilian facilities, and military targets. And one of the problems there is we're not doing that.
That's precisely why I say that the Western media outlets have directly enabled the genocide of Palestinians by actively colluding with the terrorists from Israel and the Western countries. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.